We are starting the Tuesday, April 12th regular trustees board meeting for the Ross Valley School District. It is 5:04 p.m. and I'm calling the meeting to order, and we are all here in attendance at the district office. We are starting the meeting in a closed session. We have 4 items on this closed session. We have a conference with real property negotiators for 199 Porteous Avenue. We have a conference with real property negotiators for 110 Shaw Drive. We have a conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Governance Code 54956.9. Special education program dispute. 2 cases. Student ID 775-643-0602 and 292-724-0425. And our final item is public employee discipline, dismissal, release, and or reassignment item. So we will now adjourn. Oh, sorry. There is nobody here in the audience for public comment, and we have not received any public comment on this item. So we can now recess into closed session. Okay. All right. We are reconvening into open session on Tuesday, April 12th for the Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees meeting at 7:09 p.m. And welcome, everyone. Really wonderful to see you all here. Before we move forward with our recognition this evening, we have a couple of procedural items. And the first one is the Pledge of Allegiance that we will all do. And sometimes I do a little bit of a moment of democracy before we do a Pledge of Allegiance to kind of acknowledge it as something more than just a perfunctory thing that we do, because it is more than just a perfunctory thing. It's recognizing our civic community. But because we're having the recognition tonight, I'm going to let that recognition speak for itself as part of our civic life together. So think of that as we're saying our Pledge of Allegiance, that we are pledging allegiance to each other in this recognition. To education. To education. All right, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our next procedural item is to adopt the agenda and the time allocations. So I will look to my trustee colleagues to see if there is anyone who has any questions or amendments to the agenda. And if not, open and entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Marie?
Aye.
Brian?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Rachel?
Aye.
Leslie? Wonderful. All right, so we've adopted the agenda, which means we now get to move on to the very first agenda item, which is our recognition of the Ross Valley School District's 2022 Golden Bell Honorees and nominations. So, take it from there.
This is a very exciting time that we have tonight to be able to honor and recognize our Golden Bell nominations. And we have a new tradition that we're starting in Ross Valley. So historically, we've always followed what the county's award ceremony categories are. But the administrative team realized this year that one of the elements of those Golden Bell categories is because the way that classified employees are recognized for the county is that districts get a certain number of allocations of classified employees, and it's based on enrollment. And so our district, being the enrollment size that we are, we get 4. With declining enrollment, we could be going down to 3. And because we feel that our classified employees are significant component, integral component of everything that we do in Ross Valley to serve our children, to educate our children, that with the countywide, we get to have one certificated nomination from every school site. But when it comes to classified, we only get a certain number of allocations. So we wanted to start a new tradition in Ross Valley to where we also nominate and honor in our own district here locally, so at the school sites and at the board level, to be able to honor and recognize one classified employee from every site. The administrative team this year, based on all of the nominations that came in, made a decision to have the 4 nominations go forward for the countywide award ceremony for classified be for district-wide employees rather than individual sites. And so that was where we got the great idea that because of that, we wanted to be sure that every site was able to recognize and honor a classified employee too for a Golden Bell. What we know that next year could happen is with our allocation of maybe only 3 next year, maybe the nominations and the selections will be based on a school site and no one district-wide would get that recognition. So going forward, whether it's this year or next, we could have as many as we have tonight, which is upwards of 10, but we will have going forward at least one from every one of our school sites, which is 5, plus our district-wide, and that would give us 6 total. So we wanted to add that to our local recognition and make it a little bit more robust than just following exactly what we do at the county level. And so tonight we're going to recognize our certificated selections for each of the school sites, our classified selections, as well as one of the countywide awards is a classified employee of the year. And we have put forth one of our classified employees for the of the year nomination. Now that doesn't mean they get it, so that's why we say the honorees and the nominees is because we have a person here who is getting a Golden Bell for the classified employee, but also we did nominate for the countywide award. And so that person has gone up against all other nominations from every single other district in the county, and we'll see what happens. So exciting. That information should be coming out early this week. So hopefully soon we'll know how that goes. And then one of the categories that comes around with Golden Bell is it's a rotating schedule, but this year it was community partners, volunteers. And so we as a district have also selected a community partner to get a Golden Bell at the countywide ceremony as well. So that's the introduction of our Golden Bells, and tonight we're going to do something a little different than what we've done in the past. We're going to go by site with the selections that have been made at each of the school sites and the district office, of course, for the district-wide. And so we'll start off. Julie did make it into the building. Where'd you go? Maybe I'll share. Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. And so what we're going to do is go in order. We'll go start with Brookside, and I'll work our way. Brookside, Hidden Valley, Manor, Wade Thomas, Whitehill, and then district office. And so thank you all. And then when we talk about you, if you could also please, we want to hear who you brought with you tonight. And so if you have a family member, a significant other, just somebody who you wanted to bring with you tonight, we'd love for you to introduce them as well. Okay, so Brookside, let's go.
Yay. I'm Judith Bear, the principal, Barry Goujon. I'm the principal at Brookside. I am so happy to say some kind words about Stacy Walden, our certificated Golden Bell Award winner as a 5th grade teacher. Stacy goes the extra mile every day to support students socially, emotionally, and academically. She does a fantastic job communicating effectively with families, guardians, and school teams to help each 5th grader grow and prepare for middle school, which is not always an easy task. She really inspires all of her peers at Brookside and district-wide with her courageous leadership, teaching about social justice and activism. And she takes a very active leadership role at Brookside and in our district on teacher leadership teams. She continually uses her intelligent, experienced voice to advocate for equity for all. And I just am so happy she landed at Brookside. I've had her there a few years. She's been in the district a long time, but I was really thrilled that she ended up at Brookside and is in 5th grade at Brookside. So congratulations.
Bravo.
Thank you all. This is my husband Eugene Walden. We're married 27 years. We're San Anselmo residents.
Very good.
Okay, thank you, Judith.
And good morning. With your classified.
Should we talk about classified
Yeah,
too?
and so not everybody is here, as we can imagine, but that's okay. We'll still honor them.
Yes, dear Mac said that this would be very uncomfortable for her to be called out. She's very humble in a group, but Mac does an exceptional job providing support to students in her care as a program aide in our upper grade special day classroom. She works collaboratively with school teams to implement behavior and academic plans with a full heart. Stacy knows her well. She's in her classroom often with students. And she's always believing in her students and helping them to grow in their independence. And I wish Mac was here today to hear me say those kind things. But we are thrilled to have her at Brookside as well.
Thank you. All right, I'm Christy Fish, principal at Hidden Valley. And I have two people with me today. One, the classified employee of the year at Hidden Valley is Mariposa Wicki, who came to Hidden Valley just a year ago and has just this bright, sunny presence that illuminates the entire school. She is just the most welcoming, kind. We have a HAWK motto: hardworking, accountable, welcoming, kind, safe. And she is an epitome of just warmth and delight, and we are so lucky to have her. So thank you for being there.
Thank you so much.
And she has the sweetest little guy, Dodge, who's a student there, but he couldn't come tonight.
Yeah.
And our certificated employee, Angie Kastner. Angie is our English language teacher and RTI teacher, and Angie has, before I think equity was a word, it just demonstrates it in everything she does. She is so student focused, advocates for students, meeting with their families, working with teachers, and then on her own, working above and beyond many additional hours and getting additional training to support students and teachers. And she's not only phenomenal at Hidden Valley in what she does, but district-wide supports teachers and is an amazing resource. And even though she works part-time, it's like she's double-time. She's just incredible. And again, we feel so lucky. Thank you, Angie.
Good evening. Well, first I want to welcome Victor Montoya. He is our classified employee that we're honoring tonight. And his name comes up every year, by the way, for this award. And we've actually honored him at school, but I'm just so happy that he's able to come here to the board tonight and see all of you because he is one amazing human being. Victor, you've been here in the district 19 years?
Approximately.
Yeah, 19 years, 9 years at Manor. And I know, Ryan, you were at Manor, so you know, and you were at Manor too. So he's just this person that you see that makes you smile. And just the other day I walked by and he goes, "This place is magical." And I was like, I agree. It's large part due to Victor. And he's really good at his job. I mean, he gets things done. He's ready to lend a hand. He's always willing to work and always has a positive smile and energy. And we just love you, Victor. So I'm very excited and I'm not the only one who nominated. It was the whole staff and basically everybody thinks you're an amazing person and colleague. So congratulations. Certificated nominee is Bianca Bergrella. She couldn't be here tonight. She's known lovingly as Miss B. And she teaches 2nd and 3rd grade combination this year. And she's been there, I think, about 11 years she's been at Manor. And she actually went to Manor as a student. And actually had Miss TL, she retired, so she was a student in one of our former teachers' classrooms. Bianca is one of the most creative and organized, innovative teachers I've ever seen. You walk in her classroom and she always finds some sort of unique and interesting activity and project to do with the kids. She's doing beautifully with the 2nd and 3rd grade combination where you have to differentiate for different grade levels, and she's handling that amazingly well. She collaborates with her team. She's a team player. She's just a wonderful role model for kids. She also does a lot of work around what we call crew at Manor and social emotional development. And she's just an amazing teacher. So we're happy to recognize her tonight as well. Thank you.
Well, I'm Julie Harris, Principal Wade Thomas. It is my honor to introduce to you our Wade Thomas Golden Bell Certificated winner, Sandra LaFleur, right here. She has a beautiful smile, and it's illuminates in everything that she does. When you walk in Sandra's classroom, what you see is incredible learning happening. You see children totally engaged. You see a teacher that has the standards, is the learning target, knows what she's doing. You see high academic learning. You see kids collaborating with each other. You see procedures and processes, and it's just smooth and elegant. And it's an expert in action. And she's not only an expert in action with her kids, but she's adored by her colleagues because she cares and she shares and she collaborates. And she goes the extra mile. She's also a parent at Wade Thomas. We were just joking, there's like 6 LeBeaus coming in, but not that many. And she's involved. I even tried to get to be the PTA president today.
Nice try.
So help her. Yes. She's really just an incredible human being, and she was nominated by many, many of her colleagues, and everyone is just thrilled to honor her. And it's a gift to work with you, Sandra. Thank you. Our classified Golden Bell winner this year is Katie Ahrens, and she is our librarian. And Katie couldn't be here tonight, and she said she didn't actually want to be publicly called out. It's not really her thing because, you know, her thing is to share the joy of love of reading with everyone. And so no matter who you are, she'll talk to you about all kinds of books, and she's equity in action. I should have mentioned that with Sandra as well. Katie is on top of whatever new book is coming out to try to think about how to connect with every child with whatever it is that they need or that they're curious about, and she's already looking for it. And children stop her all throughout the school day just to ask questions. When can they come to the library? Is she available to check out another book? Could they help her? And she's there in a moment. For all of us as staff too, as we integrate our learning throughout the day and the week with our school-wide assembly, she's always prepared with a book for us to share. She really is part of the glue of Wade Thomas, so it's fantastic. So I wish you could be here for that.
Hello, Matt Katanzri, principal at Whitehall. I'm going to go stand over here next to our recipients. 7th grade science teacher extraordinaire, Alex Hovenshane, affectionately known as Mr. O. Alex is in his 4th year teaching at Whitehall science, and not only is he an excellent science teacher, but he is much more than that to us. And he is the best things about Whitehall are shared because of Alex. And I can't even list all the clubs. I can't even list all the things this guy does for us, from web advisor to organizing all of our clubs for our students, which is a major fabric of who we are, to being the tour guide for EF Tours. This last week is taking over 70 students, 8th grade students, to Washington, D.C., which is maybe a record of number of students.
Didn't he get some extra days?
Extra days. Science class. But if you ask any student that has Alex as a teacher, almost unanimously every student will say he's their favorite. And that is because he's doing what we've been talking about for several years, which is building positive relationships. And so we're really proud of him, super deserving, and we're really happy that he's with us, okay? Our attendance clerk, Andrea Hoffman, she's not here, but she has the thankless job of calling families when their child is not in school. Sometimes she's calling families and the parents didn't realize their child was not in school. So oftentimes I hear those conversations in the office and she handles them with grace every time. So she has been an integral part of what we do in our office with our office staff, and she is especially during COVID, to hear some of the conversations coming through about why students aren't on campus and what their symptoms are that she has to hear from parents is also rather unique. So congratulations to Andrea, she's not here with us tonight.
I get the privilege of speaking about several people in the district office. And the first is Sean Nolan, Grounds Maintenance 2. And Sean Nolan has been with us since 2003. And the second, and I'm going to talk about them together because they're really a team. The second person is Casey Crawford, Grounds Maintenance 1, and he's been in the district since 2005. And one of the reasons that they were brought forward this year is because in the fall we lost both our head maintenance and our director of maintenance. And these two individuals stepped up. They came to me the very first day and said, "Chris, whatever you need, you let me know." And we were out there snaking sewer lines, we were on roofs, you name it, we were doing it. And that really is a testament to the whatever it takes attitude that these individuals have. They're really hardworking, they're dependable, they'll do anything for you. And so that really is the reason that they were selected. They're really flexible, just really, really good staff. And then another person that we have is Jenny Wright, our fiscal services assistant in the business services department, and she's been with the district since 2015. Jenny she touches many areas of the school district. She deals with purchasing, she deals with child nutritional services, and she deals with transportation. And she deals with a lot of the parents, and oftentimes it is with difficult issues that she's trying to address. And she always does it with the children in mind. And during the last year, she was also instrumental in purchasing a lot of what we call PPE, personal protective equipment. She did it while looking for the best price, looking for how quickly we can get it in, and always keeping those timelines in mind for the safety of our staff and students. Last summer, she ran our Seamless Summer program, which is a food service program for our neediest students and community members. And what she noticed is that there were a number of parents that were not able to come in to be able to pick up those meals. So she arranged to have them delivered to the homes for those family members. So that shows her way of thinking to be able to help the community. She has provided Spanish language translations for parents that needed it. And her desire to provide services to our community and to break down those barriers for education really are really fundamental parts of what she does on a daily basis. And she always does this with equity as a key foundation in her work, and we appreciate everything that she does.
Classified employee who we have nominated to be the Classified Employee of the Year. So put last but not least.
So my name is Sean Maher. I'm the Director of Technology, and I have the honor of speaking a little bit about Jorge Orellana. So I never do off the cuff, so I got a nice little thing for you. In the span of Jorge Orellana's tenure at the Ross Valley School District, which just happens to have started 477 days ago, we've come to understand and appreciate just how pivotal a role one person can play in helping move a district forward towards its goals of providing a safe, equitable, and inclusive learning environment for all of our students and families. Jorge's official title is Technology Specialist 3, but his contributions extend well beyond the support he provides for the devices that sit in our classrooms and the programs we rely on to keep our systems running smoothly. He's quickly become an invaluable asset to families needing help by bridging the communication divide, whether it be a new student needing to register for classes or a family in need of support around transportation. Jorge is always right there to help ensure that every family is heard and that their needs are met. He's assisted families needing devices and hotspots at home, ensuring that not only do they understand how to use them, but that they know they can reach out to him if any support is needed in the future. Jorge's on the front lines, helping teachers in the classrooms daily during some of their most challenging times of need around technology. And he does it all with a smile on his face and a can-do attitude, ready to go with a backup solution just in case things don't go as planned. He's a team player who takes initiative and is always willing to jump in to help. He's quickly become a valuable member of our tech team, the school district, and the greater Ross Valley community at large. So I want to thank you, Jorge, for your wonderful, wonderful contributions to the Ross Valley School District.
thank you, all of our fabulous employees, for everything you do every day on behalf of all of our students, staff, and families, and our Ross Valley schools, just to be the greatest place that you could be. And so thank you for everything that you do on behalf of all of us. So really appreciate every one of you. Thank you. And our we have one more category, which is our YMCA, which is the partner that we chose for this school year. And our main reason for choosing the YMCA as a partner was because of their continued support all throughout the pandemic to ensure that our students had a place to go. They not only to keep our place on every single one of our campuses, but to expand their program when we weren't even open yet. But there were still the hubs on the campuses where our kids could go, so they would have somebody to help them with their schoolwork, to have access to the technology that they would need, internet services. And then also, just right before this school year started, when we realized what our TK enrollment was going to look like, and that we would actually have transitional kindergarten students on every single one of our campuses, they do have a certain number of students that they need to be able to offer daycare and expand their program. And with the numbers that we had at each of the sites, so the families needing the daycare, they didn't have the numbers that they needed. But they did rally, go and ask their staff if they would be willing to add more hours to their day, work a little longer, and we worked in partnership with them to be able to provide that service to our families. The YMCA, more than I've ever realized in working through the pandemic and the continued work with them, is that they truly are there for school communities and the communities at large that serve children. And we're in fact looking at ways that we can expand our partnership with them. They're always willing to have yes be the way that they want to move forward, and we work from there to make it all happen. And so for that reason, we chose the YMCA as an extremely invaluable partner for the Ross Valley School District students and community. So that was the YMCA. And so with that, all right, and then what we want to do before we break for the reception is we want to get a picture with all of our Golden Bells, the administrators, with the trustees. And so they're not real Golden Bells, but they are beautiful Golden Bells that Teresa Machado has made. And she is very
She's so classy.
So we'll have all of our Golden Bells come up, and trustees, and we'll get pictures, and then we'll break for a quick second to have a little reception out in the foyer. Be great. So thank you all for coming.
All right. All right, that was a wonderful reception. Thank you all, and we had a great time recognizing and appreciating all of our amazing staff. And thank you all for being innovative on the new procedures for doing this.
Absolutely.
It's a good way.
I don't know why we didn't think of it before,
This
but
is
to
great.
recognize in-house, more locally with our Golden Bell honorees. So we'll be looking at possibly even expanding it next year. I have another idea for how we can expand recognition of staff. So stay tuned.
Okay. All right, it's 8:06, and we are on to item number E, which is communications. So we have a report out from closed session, and then opening it for public comments. So the report out from our closed session earlier today, we have nothing to report on the first two items regarding the real property negotiations. And we did take action on item B6, which was the conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation for special education program disputes. And the board voted unanimously to approve the settlement agreements that were proposed for the two cases to settle the special education program dispute. So that was an action and a unanimous vote on item B6. We also took action on item B7, which was the public employee item, and the board also voted unanimously to approve the resignation agreement of the classified employee. So those were the two actions taken in closed session. We now are open to any public comments regarding items that are not on our open session agenda. So if there's anyone here who wants to make any public comment on an item that's not on the agenda, and we don't have any. So now we'll go on to board announcements. Does anyone have any board announcements from spring break, open houses?
I do.
Sure, go for it.
So I went to Hidden Valley and White Hills open houses. It was fun because it was the first open house I'd attended as a middle school parent because just the timing with the 6th grade and with COVID hit. So it was great to actually bounce around the different classrooms and see what they've been working on. And for my husband, who wasn't available to do back to school night, he got to meet all of my son's teachers as well. So it was just nice to go around, and the jazz band was there playing as well. So it was a really nice atmosphere. And then same at Hidden Valley. I hadn't done it in a long time, so it was nice to go and see the classroom and what the kids are working on, and go and see the art room and see what they had. And they'd done a nice display in the multi-purpose room, so it was nice and spread out, which was great. And then I attended the Hidden Valley play that they had done with the YES program, which was really fun to see. And they had it on YouTube, so I got to watch both casts, which is cool.
How many plays did you end up going? You went to a couple of them, didn't you?
No, I've only gone to one.
Okay.
I'm going to the next one that's coming up for White Hill. Their spring one is in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yes. Buy your tickets.
Yeah,
Buy your tickets now.
Bye-bye, birdie.
So there you go.
All right. Anyone else?
Well, I attended the same open house, and what was, I think what I liked for me that day was to see the mix of people with mask and non-mask, because I had not, we have been either seeing people with a lot of mask or zero mask, and what was the experience that day was a diversity of families and kids and teachers wearing and not wearing masks, and I thought that was really what the kids live every day, which is not the way I live in my own work life, in my own day. So that was quite eye-opening for me to really kind of get a little bit of a sense of that, what the kids are doing every day. And of course, the open house was fantastic, and I had a chance to meet some people here and to hear Rachel practicing her French in the French class. Excellent. I gave her an A. She did quite well, quite bueno.
Demonstration experience in class. I remember those.
And those are really community events, and that we have felt the lack of that community relationship, and that was definitely very joyful. So thank you for having that. Yeah. That's what else.
All right. Correspondence and communication to the board. We do have one item that everybody has hopefully
Absolutely.
seen on there, and I don't know if anything else came in
No,
afterwards.
we did not receive any others, just the one on support of the district's racial equity work.
Excellent.
Okay. All right, then we can move on to item number F, which is the heart of our meetings here with the presentation and action items. So the first item is a discussion regarding bond refinance and potential tax rate extensions. And I know we all have some presentation materials.
And we had Scott here.
Yes.
And I will turn it over to
Chris.
Yes, and so I would like to introduce Mr. Dale Scott. And Dale Scott is with Dale Scott and Company. And his business is here located in San Francisco. And what he will be discussing this evening is the potential refinancing of our current general obligation bonds, as well as a potential for a tax rate extension should the governing board wish to look at that as well. But what we would be looking for this evening is not any action, it would simply be direction. So with that, Dale, I'm going to turn this over to you. This is the clicker. So
just go to the arrow.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much for coming.
Is it okay if I just sit here?
Have a seat. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
So between the glasses and the clicker, it's
Do you want me to?
The struggle is real.
it'll be fine. Let me start by just thanking you for having me here. My name is Dale Scott, obviously. We have, as Chris said, been working with out of San Francisco and across the state for many decades, and we have districts. We concentrate solely on California school districts and community college districts, and our client base is really up and down the state. In the year 2020 on the ballot, we literally had a district on the Mexican border and a district on the Oregon border at the same time. But Zoom made that one easy. So tonight I thought I would take you through this presentation, and I welcome questions as we walk through. I will note just on the cover, you can see a little Best in Business award, which I do want to brag about for just a moment. This is from Inc. magazine. As I always tell people, that's with a C, not a K, for the magazine. That is a Best in Business award for last year for the work we did on teacher staff housing in Jefferson Union High School District in Daly City.
Okay.
On page 3 is a table of the district's assessed valuation. That's all of the taxable property that is in the district. That includes commercial, industrial, residential, et cetera, et cetera. That's the amount that is levied, on which taxes is levied. So it's not necessarily the real estate value, it's the taxable value. You can see.
Here's a table.
Oh, thanks. That's great.
Lovely modular furniture.
Thanks.
Part of the bond financing in action.
Somebody's gonna lower from the ceiling anyway. So this assessed valuation, if you look over on the right-hand side of the table, you can see that that is the percentage increase over the last 20 years or so, 15 years. And down at the bottom is the average 5-year, 10-year, 15-year, very consistent, 5% a year for a little bit of a dip in the recession, but besides that, fairly consistent. However, as I said, that's not necessarily the real estate values, and I want to make that clear. If you look at the next table, I'll be talking a lot about the dollar amount of assessment on a bond per $100,000 of assessed valuation. That's how it's sort of valued. And everybody always says, oh my God, that'd be so much. Real estate here is so expensive. That's true. But if you look at the assessed valuation, this table shows the number of single-family homes in $200,000 increments for what their actual assessed valuation is. And you can see that the average home assessed valuation is about $825,000. You have 5,000 homes on the 4,000 homes on the roll under $800,000, 1,000 homes on the roll under $200,000. So that's sort of the nature of Prop 13. These homes will continue to be increasing at about 2% a year until they're sold, and then they pop up. So it's not like all the homes in the district have a very, very large taxes. And then a little history. On page 5, you can see the district's 2 previous bond measures, one in 1999 and one in 2010. All of those funds have been spent, and now the bonds are being repaid by the taxpayers, those that I just showed in the previous slide. Let's start then with the refinancing. When these bond issues are passed by the voters, the districts then begin to sell those bonds typically in what are called series. So if you look down at the bottom of this table, 2010 Series A, those bonds were, 2010 Measure A, those bonds were actually issued in 4 separate series, and you're issuing those bonds as you need the funds. So it's not necessary that you don't get all of the money sitting in the bank. You get it, the taxes goes up, and a little bit more, then a little bit more. 11, 12, 16, 17, those bonds were issued over time. They have all been financed. Two have actually been refinanced, and we're talking here about a second refinancing for those as well. The important piece of this table is the second column from the right, where it says optional prepayment. So when these bonds are structured and issued, the investors get a period where they cannot be refinanced. They can buy the bonds, they can know those bonds are going to stay in their portfolio for a certain number of years. Typically it's about 10 years. And then at that time they kind of become free, and if the numbers work, they can be refinanced into lower amounts. So the way I explain it to people is, the simple explanation is, those investors now have bonds in their portfolio which are at rates that are higher than the current market, typically. And so by doing a refinancing, you're essentially taking those higher interest rates out of those people's portfolio and taking those savings and giving them back to taxpayers. That's really all that's happening in refinancing. There are a lot of regulations about it, but that's the essence of what's going on. So we looked at, and I want to note on the cover here, this presentation was done in February originally. A few things have happened since February. So these rates that we originally did this analysis have gone up quite a bit, and I'll talk about that. But you can see that we are looking at these various series and how they're paid. If you go all the way over to the right-hand corner, right-hand side, you can see the total combined debt service that is being paid by the taxpayers. That amount then is converted into a tax rate, and every year the county raises that amount in order to repay those bonds.
Yep.
So if you turn to the next page, you can then see graphically what that means. If we take the assessed valuation and we assume it will continue to rise at 5% per year, and we solve for that, then you can see on this page what the estimated tax rates look like going forward up through the year 2042. And they're hovering between the low 20s and close to $30 per year.
We're looking at page 8 or page 9?
Yeah.
I'm just sorry.
9. Right?
You're looking at
Okay,
page 8,
okay,
sorry.
page 8.
So
No,
page
no
8
problem, just making
Sorry,
sure.
page 8 is the 2010 election.
Got it.
Yeah.
Now we're at page 9. If you add in the 299 election, then you have this bump.
Got it.
And I think that bump is important because, you know, your typical taxpayer, when they get their bill, they don't look at it and say, okay, well, what's the rate on the 2010 bond and what's the rate on the 90? They say, what's the rate? What's the total rate? So right now, they're paying nearly somewhere around 50 to the lower 50s. And then as the years progress, that 99 is going to go off the rolls and it's going to bounce down to $30. So that gives us some opportunities that we'll talk about in a moment.
That's when the other ones retire.
Yes.
The green one's
Sorry.
retired.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So we're adding another. This is on top of.
Well, we'll talk about that.
Okay, sorry, jump you.
It's our current bond.
Current bond, right?
This
That's
is the
still out
current.
there. Got
This
it.
is all
This is
still
the
the
current bond, right?
99 and the 2010.
Yeah.
Yep.
There are some opportunities to refinance those bonds that are outstanding. If you look at page 11,
Yeah.
you'll see, and I'm going to talk about these savings in a minute. You can see that both at the top of the page, both the 2010 Series A and the 2010 Series B in February had a fair amount of savings that were available. Go all the way over to the right, you can see the potential savings. The Series A had 81,000. The Series B had potential close to about 4.7 million.
And that was just because of the differential in the rates.
Just because of the different rates.
Okay.
The rates that have increased over the past 30 days or so have really knocked those for a loop, to the point where there's really no savings in the Series A. It's a little bit, but it's pretty much gone. And the Series B savings have been knocked down to about $2.25 million total. Still serious money. That's about 11% savings. That's as of today, actually. Well, you know, you wouldn't be refinancing this for a month or so it's hard to say what will happen in the next month. But that's going to move up and down as we get towards the sale date. So if we go to the next page, page 12, if we did refinance these at whatever rate we could, we would be able then to lower the tax rates for taxpayers by not an insubstantial amount. Now, it's not going to be as much as it was, obviously, but we don't have to, and this is a point I want to make. You can see here that gray savings is proportional over the remaining 20 years or so, but we don't have to do that. We can put those savings wherever we want. And so if you look at the next page,
Oh, yeah.
we can actually front load those savings
Mm.
and bring down those earlier years faster. And then everything else remains the same. We could do the opposite as well, by the way. We
You
could
can
have them all at the
backload
end
them.
if we wanted. But I think there's a method to do this that I'm going to talk about. But this is called front-loaded savings, and it gives frankly, the taxpayer who's been here the benefit now. So that's how the refunding works. It would require a simple resolution passed by the board to authorize the refinancing. We would be recommending an underwriter. We don't buy the bonds, we simply work as your agent on that. We would be recommending an underwriter that we select through a proposal process. And when and if that financing worked at that time, all of the costs associated with that financing would be paid out of that financing. So in other words, if the board decides to go forward, passes the resolution, we bring the team together, everything starts working, we get ready to sell, and the savings just aren't there, there are no costs. We put it on the shelf, we wait until it works, hopefully, or if it doesn't. But you're not going to be sitting there looking at a big bill and me coming in and saying, well, I'm sorry, but it doesn't work now. So everybody gets paid when it works, but not until it works.
Yep.
With some minor exceptions, but by and large. This shape, however, now I'm going to switch gears. This shape provides some real opportunities to you. So I'm going to talk about what is called a tax rate extension for a bond measure. And let me give you some statistics on why I think this is important. So since Prop 39 was passed, which has now been about 20 years ago, there have been about 1,600 bond measures that have been put on the ballot in the state of California. Of those 1,600, somewhere around 80% have passed.
Yeah.
Okay? If we look at only those measures that have been on the gubernatorial or the presidential ballot, that number pops up to about 86, 87%. But if we look at those measures where we're going to the voters and saying, we're not going to increase your taxes, we're going to extend the tax rate. We're going to hold the tax rate where you're at now, we're going to attempt to hold the tax rate where you are now, and we're going to have that go forward. Those pass at about 93%. For obvious reasons. People say, oh, it's not going to cost me more, I like that. So you can see on the next page, on page 15, this imagines going to the voters in November of 22, asking for a tax rate extension. Those are the 3 series of bonds, blue, yellow, and dark blue, that would be issued, bringing that tax rate up to where it is today, not extending it any longer than it is today, and that would produce roughly $44 million of available funds for the district. I'm going to stop there because that's a lot of information. I want to see if there's any questions.
There's a lot of information that's part of this that's kind of in the background. For example, and you can see it listed down in the bottom right on this particular page. It talks about assumes a 4% average interest rate, 6.5% AV growth, which is your assessed valuations, through 2023 and 5% thereafter. One of the things that we've done is taken a look at it and made it a little conservative. If you look at just the 6.5% growth through 2023, just last week I received word from the county that our AV growth for next year is expected to be over 7% now. So it continues, those numbers continue to change as we go forward, but they generally don't get worse unless they are, there's some type of an adjustment because perhaps property is changing from private to government, which then comes off of the tax rolls, which doesn't happen very often. So generally, if you're seeing it go up, it's not going to go down, except in rare circumstances. So they are fairly conservative.
So along those lines then, in terms of the refinance, it's variable rate refinance, not a fixed?
No, it'd be fixed rate.
It's fixed rate.
It'd be fixed rate. All the rates are fixed. We lock those in. And the reason I showed you the front-loaded savings is because that kind of digs more room out of those early years to then extend the tax rate. And it produces more potential bonding for the district. And it makes it easier and cheaper for the taxpayer in the long run because the interest won't be as high because we're paying them off sooner. So you're in a unique situation, frankly. I mean, this is not common to see a district that has one issue going off this quickly, having this much savings for potential, and then also having the ability to raise this much money without the potential of a tax rate increase. All of those pieces come together for you. However, let's look at the next page.
Yeah.
The biggest single variable in...
Go back. Thank you.
I'm sorry?
Yes, exactly. I was going to say. Who is going to vote and what else is happening on the ballot at that time?
Yeah. The biggest single variable in the passage of a general obligation bond is the number of registered Democrats in the district. And that's not to say that all Democrats vote for vote for school bonds and all Republicans vote against, but proportionally it's a stronger indicator. Your Democratic registration is roughly double the state's average. Your Republican registration is roughly a third of the state registration. And the decline to state, those are voters that tend to move towards Democratic voters, Democratic candidates. But, as the board member said, the real issue is not so much what is the party affiliation, but who votes in those various elections. This isn't perfect because we're looking at turnout that sometimes because people go off the rolls, it doesn't reflect it, but you can see the difference between the presidential elections, which are the dark gray, and the gubernatorial elections, which are the light gray. Not a great deal of difference, frankly, in this community. It looks a lot, but I was with a district this morning, actually on the Mexican border, in Imperial County, and their turnout rate difference is about 50%. So it really varies a great deal from community to community. Now, and even if you look at the recall, which is the September 21, that's extraordinarily high turnout for an election which was really
You'd have to vote here.
kind of one person in the September of 21, and nobody thought anybody would vote. You still had, out of 18,000 voters, you had 14,000.
Yeah, this is a very active community.
Oh, yeah.
Very opinionated.
Well, very intelligent community, by the way. Yeah, voting community.
No,
No, that comes through.
I mean, and I'm not saying how you pick the candidate. I'm saying informed voters and high turnout. I think actually when Obama ran, Fairfax was the highest rated percentage voting turnout in the nation.
Fairfax always better.
No, it's not. It's not. But I'm just saying we're smaller. But just in general, it's a very intelligent voter base here.
I mean, that just comes through when you look at these numbers. They just don't fall off the way you're used to seeing in the off-cycle races. So even though there's usually a difference between gubernatorial and presidential elections, there's just not a big difference here. So, I'm sorry, did you have a question?
No, I'm just processing. I'm also thinking about, because I've seen similar presentation for other measures and bonds for the town of San Anselmo specifically. And one of the things that we were looking at, I just so happened to be on the financial committee for the town of San Anselmo, and we were looking at going for a bond in November. And so as we were going through those presentations, I remember one of the consultants maybe like 1 year ago or 6 months ago was also mentioning the timing of maybe going because others would be going at the same time, asking for, more taxes. And there was definitely like some thinking to be doing as a community but partnering is that, hey, are we, what is Fairfax putting on the ballot in November? What is Town of San Anselmo putting on the ballot in November? We're discussing this evening, I can't be there because I'm here, Measure D going on the ballot, the renewal of Measure D going on the ballot for San Anselmo in November, which is touch rate exactly. So there was, and I'm certainly not an expert, but I remember the consultant telling us about certain time it's actually good to go together, certain time because it's like, okay, this is a good time, this is the same, it's sold for both of the same idea by the Town of San Anselmo and West Valley School District. So just wanted to point that out because we are going to probably know more about that. Maybe we would know about it right now if I was texting the Town of San Anselmo, but this is definitely something we're looking at right now. So, yeah.
Now, let me give you not so much the research, but my opinion about that, which is what I've seen over the last 30 years of elections is there's a hierarchy that's in place among types of local governments. And it goes something like this. In terms of which measures do better.
Yes, please.
Elementary districts at the top, and then unified districts, and then high school districts, and then college districts, and then non-educational districts. So without a doubt, elementary districts are at the top of that pyramid. Meaning if there's a number of measures on the ballot, people will tend to gravitate to that one if they're shopping. And then the high school districts and the college districts tend to have the harder time.
Yeah.
So, and the fact that it is a tax rate extension then gives you an extra. I mean, we have, and we would survey here, and I'd recommend, I'll talk about it in a minute, but when we split that vote, when we split that language, so we'll ask half of the people, would you vote for this measure? And we ask the other, if your taxes was going to go up, we ask the other half the same exact question, but we tell them it's a tax rate extension. That's usually about 10 points of difference.
And as part of that, we also ask a question related to potentially the town of San Anselmo. If both of the school district and the town of San Anselmo have extensions on there, would you vote yes? So you could build that into any questions.
Yeah, I mean, we've done that in a lot of different ways. We've actually done it with working with Cupertino now. They're thinking about either trying to decide whether they should do a parcel tax extension or a bond extension, and which makes sense. And so we do the same thing. We split in two piles of voters, and we ask that very question at the end. When we get to the end, say, now there are also people that are getting the bond survey. They say, now they're also thinking about doing a parcel tax. Which of these statements would describe you? I'd vote for both. I'd just vote for the bond. I'd just vote for the parcel tax. I wouldn't vote for either. You can pretty well sort out where that's going to, by adding those numbers together, whether it's going to make sense or not to go with both or not. Okay, so what do you need to do?
Can I ask another question? What would be our plan to spend the $44 million?
That's a great question.
Because I'm just saying, like,
The very first thing that we would have to do, even before the governing board makes a decision to do this, is we would have to go out and work on our long-range facility master plan.
Exactly.
Because our long-range facility master plan is from like 2012, 2013. And so we would have to start that process in order to look at our facilities. I will tell you that walking around our facilities, we have an aging. I know our community.
Yes, no, I'm convinced about that, but the work to get that plan.
But you have to do that work in order to involve the school communities, because it isn't just done sitting at my desk or at the superintendent's desk. Right. You need the school communities to be able to then inform that decision process, to then bring that back to the governing board to help prioritize that list, to then inform the bond. And often what they do with the bond language is it's pretty broad in how it's written.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah.
And so it would generally cover those items. But then you want to make sure that the governing board is taking that information that is put together by the community and helping to inform their decision.
Correct.
Your decision.
Yeah, get that.
So that would be a critical first step for us.
Got it. And we agree we don't have that now.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What was the date that you said our last one was done?
I believe it was 2012.
2012.
Yeah.
All right.
Dale, what kind of bonds are these? Didn't we a few years ago restructure them from one type of bond to another?
I don't believe so. They're still general obligation bonds, and they're still payable with an assessment by the taxpayers for residential, industrial, commercial, and agricultural property.
I think we may have, though, refinanced some other bonds at one time where we had capital appreciation bonds,
Yeah.
which are known as CABs.
Yeah.
And we do have CABs in these that we were looking at, but those are the ones that basically, due to the raising of the interest rates, now probably would not provide a savings to the district.
And have those bonds been completely paid off at this point?
The non-geo bond?
No, they still are GEO bonds.
I guess it's geo bond, but they have a different category.
I think it's the.
Do we have all of our bond obligations in front of us right now?
Yes,
Okay.
and it's that crossover refunding,
Okay.
which is the 2017, which is what you were thinking about.
Yeah.
And you also see the Series A partially refunded by crossover.
Because
What
of that
page are
one.
you looking at?
Page 6, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
Issuance year 2011. That one?
And you see the notes
Yes.
at the bottom
Okay.
where it says crossover refunding refunded a portion of the 2010 Series A
Got it.
bonds.
Oh yeah, in 2017, that's the one you would remember because
Yeah.
you were
and
doing
so
that.
in essence,
I think we converted the bond from one type to another, did we not?
we went from a capital appreciation bonds, and actually some of them may have been capital appreciation bonds and current interest, and then we crossed them over into current interest bonds.
Yeah.
And the difference between the two is a capital appreciation bond is basically you're going out and borrowing money that you don't necessarily have the bonding capacity under your assessed valuations to access. So you're borrowing dollars and you're starting to pay it back, but you're not paying back your principal, you're just paying back a lot of your interest.
Yep.
And so what ends up happening is over time, the amount that you're repaying can be exponentially higher than it would be if you.
No, I remember.
And so you do that based upon your program. If you have a need to access those funds prior to when you really have the assessed valuations.
Then you need to do that, but
Yeah.
other than that, you get out of it, right? Okay.
Exactly. Now, there was also a period of time, it was probably like 2010, 2011, there was a district in San Diego County by the name of Poway Unified that they had issued capital appreciation bonds and they had borrowed, Dale, you might know the
No,
dollar.
$100 million and the repayment was $1 billion.
Wow. Like, Rachel is going to pass out over there.
They have nice schools, but jeez.
Anyway, I just, thank you for bringing me up to speed. I didn't mean to throw you off, Dale.
No, I wanted to point out on slide 15, which I put up on the screen, that was, I think it's a good question. That was structured without capital appreciation bonds. And in fact, I think in the resolution, putting the item on the ballot, it would be appropriate, given the history, to put some language in there that they would not be available for capital appreciation bonds. So you will take that completely off the table as an argument or a question or a concern.
Got it.
Okay, let's turn back to page.
So what you really want to avoid as a district and a governing board is having to go down the path of issuing capital appreciation bonds. There is legislation now that prevents you from issuing at the levels that Poway Unified did. There's certain dollar thresholds or like percentage thresholds, which is what it is. And so you wouldn't be able to do that. But it is good to try and, as much as possible, do your layering of your bonds so that you don't end up having to go and issue those cabs just because it's not good financial practice for the community.
It's not.
Yeah.
Because they might be giving you the ability to borrow that $40+ million, but they have to repay whatever is the final number. And so we want to keep that number as low as possible to be good stewards of the public dollar.
Okay, there are 3 big steps, well, let's say 2.5 steps to get to putting this on the ballot. The first, which is not required, but it's at the board's discretion, is to do a voter survey. And I would say, of the districts we work with, probably 90% do those surveys. We do them internally to try to keep the cost down. They are often hauntingly accurate. I'd like to say so, not always, but we have a pretty good track record on them. And we're really not going out to talk to the community. We're going out through a professional firm that we subcontract with and talking to the highly probable voter. That's the person we really want to hear from, to try to get a sense of how they would feel about the tax rate extension, and then also questions about how they feel about various projects, how they feel what the district has been, what kind of job the district has been doing, how important they think schools are for the community, whether they think it would help real estate values to have schools in good shape. So that's number 1. Number 2 is, in order for this process to work, as I've described it, the board would have to pass a resolution authorizing the refinancing of those earlier bonds. And then number 3, the board would have to pass a resolution asking the county to put the bond measure onto the ballot, onto the November ballot. That request that request of the county, it says here August 22nd. I believe that's actually now August 12th. Is the date.
Yeah.
So, in my mind, you would do the resolution for the refunding and the survey results at the same time in late May. And then if the survey results came back correctly, and as we hoped, and the board wants to go forward, bring it back in June for final action to get on the ballot. But you have some leeway there. Those are the big pieces of the puzzle. Then the election is, we say November 8th, but of course it's not really election day anymore. The election starts a month earlier, so we have to start relabeling this and say end of the election on November 8th. And then the funds would be available in early 2023. Any questions?
When you just do the surveys, do you make it clear to the person that you're speaking with? Like, I've worked on parcel taxes, so I understand like parcel taxes are for people and the buildings are the bonds. Do you make that clear to people you're calling? Because I know that when I worked with the parcel taxes, I had to explain a lot of time, no, this is not for the buildings. Yes, I understand the buildings need upgrades. But do they talk to people about that? Like, what do they do when they talk to them?
When you do a survey, you don't. You don't, because you're trying to get people's opinion, you're not trying to educate them.
Okay.
So the way the surveys work is after you give them a couple warm-up questions, because you have to make sure that they understand you're not trying to sell them anything, you really are trying to get their opinion. Then we kind of then ask what we believe the ballot language will sound like, how it will read, and without any other information, which frankly is the way many people vote. And we read that to them, ask them their opinion, then go through and ask them, if you knew the funds would be used for this, would you be more likely or less likely to vote? If you knew that the cost would be X, would you be more likely or less likely? If you knew it would last 15 years. So we're trying to get some sense. And then we give them a chance to change their vote at the end. Now that you've heard this, would you still be in favor or against? So there's no real education that goes on purpose, because we're really trying to just get opinion.
So we'd have to make that clear on our side if we decided to move forward with something like that.
Yes.
Okay.
Generally, that is written into the bond language itself as well. It's not to be paying for salaries, administrative.
Yeah, explaining the difference between that and the passive tax,
Administration,
Because it's a bond extension, not a new bond, Are you limited to the existing bond language?
No, I want to be clear. It is a new bond that is extending, that is structured to extend the tax rate of the old bond.
Got it.
But it is a new bond.
Yeah.
And whatever projects you want to put in there, it's up to you. There's no limitation between those two.
And Chris, from what you were saying about the long-range facility master plan update, that needs to happen pre-voter cert, before all of this?
It doesn't have, it would have to be started before then. You don't have to have it completed. I've worked on them and had them take a year, and I've also worked on updates to them, and they take only a couple of months. And so it really depends on how extensive the district wants to get into.
Yeah.
But we would need to do it before we took action.
You don't normally write into your bond language so specific language that would say, for example, we're going to, and I'm making this up, replace roofs at White Hill Middle School.
Okay.
You wouldn't start naming specific projects like that. You generally write it a little broader. That allows you to be able to do the projects as they come. And the reason you do that is sometimes you start a project and you get into it and you realize that something else needs to happen as part of that. And so what it does is it gives the governing board the ability to be able to make those determinations. And so I do believe it's something, though, that we could probably get done prior to November. If we were to go down that path, we would know what that project list is.
Right. Because you'd want, I would imagine, for the outreach or when
Yes.
people
Definitely.
know what I'm voting.
Definitely, and I'm
That
thinking
would
about
work.
all the bond material I've seen for some of them last time. It's just definitely we have a very good list.
Right.
Yeah, let me comment on that if I could. To your point, the survey is at a very high level.
Yeah.
We're not talking about, I mean, there'll be a lot of specific projects, but we're really kind of looking for, to test what is it that people are really interested in. So that's a pretty high level. When you get to the point of passing the resolution, that resolution is going to have a couple pieces of the puzzle in it. One, and most important for the election, is the actual ballot language. That's the 75 words that people are going to see. Within that resolution also, and Chris was just referring to this, is what is known as a project list. And the project list is required, an item has to be on that project list in order for you to go forward with that project. However, as Chris just said, you want to make that project list specific enough so the voters know what they're voting on, but general enough so future boards aren't being limited for projects that arise or priorities that change. Now, before you then, so we go forward, election passes, before any of those bonds can get sold, that resolution to sell the bonds has to come back to the board. So it's not like, okay, great, we've got $40 million here, let's go. It doesn't work that way. No.
You've been through that one before.
Yeah, we're gonna issue $10 million, this is what we're gonna be using it for.
Phase
This is
A.
how it fits in with our plan, et cetera, et cetera. So it's
Done
really
that.
getting tighter, but it continues to come back to the board until the final action's taken.
Okay.
How far behind are we on this?
You're not. Now, that assumes that we go forward with the poll quickly, but you have certainly enough time to put these together.
Could you explain how the poll would work in terms of contract costs, et cetera, and that? Should we decide to move forward with
Sure.
that?
The survey is one of those items that actually would have a cost associated with it, regardless of going forward or not.
Yeah.
The cost of the survey would be roughly $10,000 to $15,000. Most of that cost is not to us. Most of that cost is to the people that are being hired to make the calls.
Yeah.
Now, I say make the calls, but in fact, the way surveys work now it's a combination of landlines, cell phones, text getting people into the poll, online, emails. So they're trying to get everybody in there, get as many as possible. That would work. We would, if Chris mentioned the direction, if the direction was yes, let's proceed, we'd begin to put that poll together, have Chris come back with an agreement to complete that poll at your next meeting. That would not be a problem for us to work in advance of that. The poll we like to separate from the decision so it is not a contingent fee. So all of the other costs for the refinancing of the bond are contingent on the success. The one piece that we like to hold out is the poll and make sure that that's more removed from that question. As far as the timing, that poll would be drafted by us. It would come to the administration for review, and then we would hand it off to the calling firm. I think that would take about 3 or 4 weeks, put everything together. And then we do our analysis on it and bring it back, and I'd be presenting it to the board and in its conclusions.
And then there is one additional cost to the district, if I'm correct, which is if you do move forward and put it on the ballot, there's the additional cost of the actual.
No.
Stuff on the ballot, right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. I tend to focus only on the costs that I see. There is a cost of placing it on the ballot to the county.
Yeah.
And you pay that regardless if you win or lose. Now that cost is going to go down significantly by being on the gubernatorial ballot because you share it with all the other measures and state agencies and whatnot.
Correct.
But there is still a cost there, and that is not negotiable. It is, however, payable out of bond funds if you win, I should say.
So then really what we're looking for from the governing board this evening is just some direction in terms of looking at this. Is the refinance something that the governing board is interested in? Is the bond something the governing board is interested in exploring? And so those can be broken up. You don't have to do both. We could do just one. But really, what is the governing board's direction to staff on this?
And the refinance just takes a board resolution. There's no voting, there's no nothing. So it's just, would you like to save $2.5 million, yes or no? Kind of decision.
Well, I think it's the same thing in your house, right? Do you refinance more regularly or do you take a new loan? And so my thing is that, yes, I refinance my house on a regular basis. I take a new loan when I need to do something.
Right.
And I'm not taking a new loan until I understand clearly. At least the phase A, you know what I'm saying? So part of me, and I've seen that in other bonds and I've seen that in other districts, what I'm lacking a little bit, I like the idea of the refinancing on the bond. I'm missing, okay, so let's say 40 million, right? I do agree that we don't need the full detail and we don't want to have the full detail. It's too early right now, but do we have, or a sense, not today, but next time we talk, a sense of, and the first priorities, the first batch, the first 10 million would go toward, most likely, would go toward
X, Y, and Z.
whatever, something.
Something.
Because I've seen that, you know
And
what?
I could give you some right now that I would think that we could spend dollars on. And that would be for restroom upgrades because we have restrooms that are in need of some attention.
I'm going to say that restroom upgrades may not be exciting for the public.
No.
Okay, technology upgrade.
No, I understand.
You know what I'm saying? So I think we need to.
That's the last part of the bond money is for the restrooms.
Yes,
no,
You're
you know what I'm
I'm just saying.
We need.
You're not
we
coming.
need
You're not
to.
leading without though.
And then-
That's
and
just
then-
saying.
You're first.
You know
Not
what
leading
I'm
without.
saying?
100%.
So I have seen certain bonds passing really very well in the last couple of years on really upgrade like some kind of thing. You know, something at White Hill, every class has a big screen, or whatever, like some kind of upgrade of the technology, upgrade of shade structure for the district, electrical upgrade, things that there should be a theme. Voilà.
Potentially a new playground.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but it sounds like
Something.
that kind of, at least, laundry list, if you will, general laundry list, could be put together fairly quickly to come back with this because obviously their contract has to come back and all of that, as far as bringing back a decision. So that would all come back. That could all come back together to figure out how to make that decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will add that some of those questions as to what are the projects that have the highest level of support, that comes from the poll.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be a surprise. It may be restrooms. It's hard to say. It can vary
We need to
greatly
have
from district to district.
Yeah.
They may want upgrades on athletic fields, for example.
Yeah.
So you could look at
Priorities
upgrading
with
them.
COVID.
Correct, no, exactly. The shade structures,
of, yeah.
bigger space outside. I'm thinking the use of outside campus everywhere. Some definitely
Exterior eating areas.
exterior. Yeah.
Historically, these pass. Yes, as long as we run this at the right time and we don't run this for a superfluous need, and we can clearly identify what we want to use it for. I just think that at the end of the day, when people see that tax bill, most people want to throw up. And even though we do have good housing assessments and things are going up, it's still a lot. And at the end of the day, if you really need something, I think it's a good idea. This is just my take on it as a voter and a board member. But you have to clearly identify the most important needs, like she's saying, because if you lead with bathrooms, I'm going to be like, I'm looking ways to cut money. And at the end of the day, if the school is always looking like we're just trying to get more for more, I'm starting to look at those vector controls, mosquito things, and be like, $39 for okay, library, okay, fine, $39. But when it starts to get into these bonds, it's pretty expensive. And then you also have the local tax measures, like in Fairfax, they have a measure thing here for paramedics, and at the end of the day, if you need it, you'll get it. We will get it if we need it, I have no doubt. The question is can we clearly identify the need and not look like it's just another way that we constantly try to get money from taxpayers? Because people who own property get pretty ticked off that they're the people that are paying this, and renters sometimes don't, even though they do indirectly if you follow the money. They pay it in their rent, they just don't see it like that. But if we believe, this is my opinion, but if we clearly believe that we are technologically behind or we need something important, that's great. If we lead with bathrooms, I'm saying, hey, deal with it. And when we do need it the next time, if it's constantly seen as something we just are constantly putting out, and towns and municipalities are just starting to do this. I mean, this is just normal business now.
Yeah, I heard that fatigue from taxpayers here in the town of San Anselmo telling me, what are you going to put again on the ballot, and what else do you need? Like, it's just deferred maintenance because the town doesn't know how to manage the funds.
Yeah.
That's the town of San Anselmo, that's not here. But those conversations are happening right now at this exact minute at the town council. So that's why I'm in the middle of it, because I received that presentation this afternoon. So
when we did the 2010 bond for $40 million for Whitehill, it's because Whitehill really was behind. I mean, it really needed those upgrades that were done there. I think it was $20 million for all of the schools.
And
and that was a great thing, and people could really see that money at work. And when we divided the people into how it was going to be spent, people were active. Okay, I wanted the oversight committee. People were signing up. It was like, what are we doing first?
There was a jewel.
And then it went, it was the jewel, and then like to 5,000 to this school, 7,000 to this school, and those sites could figure it out. But without a clear defined need, like a Whitehill campus upgrade, which everyone stands to equally benefit from. I think fatigue is a great word, and I think we should be very cautious in pushing forward something just to push something forward.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we could look at is upgrading or going out and looking at that long-range facility master plan.
Yeah.
Maybe not push forward the bond at this particular point. You do lose the ability to be able to structure potentially for savings. And it might be a little more difficult in the future, just because if you look at it, you could still front load the bonds on the savings. The problem is that you always lose that first year when you go and request it from the voters. So you don't have that first year to be able to look at. And so in essence, what you're doing is you're carving off some of those years, and you might end up with something that you are increasing potentially just a little bit to taxpayers. So that's just something to keep in mind, but we can absolutely push forward the long-range facility master plan right now. It's good practice to begin with because it has been 10 years.
So what I'm hearing you say is that there's, if I'm looking at like page 12 or 13, and it relates to page 15, is that there's a few years, the 22, 23, 24, where the current tax rate, the payers are, when they pull out the property tax bill and they look at how much is this bond, it's up at that $50 rate. If you lose that time horizon, then when they pull it out, it's dropped down in 2025 and drops down again in 26, 2027, in which case then you would need to go and ask, you'd be asking to increase something that they're paying as opposed to hold it flat. So that's just a time horizon consideration is what I hear you
It's
saying.
just a consideration.
Okay.
You also lose the ability to put it on the gubernatorial, but it might be on the presidential ballot.
Right.
Yeah, so it's pretty
There's
much,
different ones.
yeah, so could it be this year or 2 years from now? But you know what, so the timing would be.
But if you look at it in 2 years, you would lose at that particular point.
Then at that time, you are too close to your, yes, I can see your point.
Right.
The timing is definitely clear, Chris.
There's a timing, there's a
That-
time horizon that you lose opportunity.
Correct. I can see that.
Yeah. Rachel and you, Leslie, do you have any
to
questions
digest.
or thoughts?
I don't necessarily have any questions, but I think we need to have some deeper conversations, okay? Tam's parcel tax failed the first time. They had to put it back on the ballot.
Yeah, and that was a big deal.
Just, we don't have a demonstrated need to issue a new bond right now, okay? And I'm open to hearing what that demonstrated need is going to be. Last time in 2010, it was to build White Hill, and a very discrete need before we put it out. Okay, and I think it's important to talk about this, but we just passed parcel tax here, and we were lucky to get it because right after that, Tam's they had to put it back on the second time. We're in the middle of coming out of this god-awful pandemic. The foundation hasn't received a lot of the money that it's received in the past. I think we have to be very, very careful before we start talking to our community about other bond issues. I'm not saying no to it. I'm just saying we need to be damn careful about it.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay? So I think we need to have more conversations. Because I think it's important for us to think long-term, but I think we need to have some more conversations.
What about the refinancing, and what about the refinancing?
I think that might be a great idea.
Exactly, okay. Just want to wrap up on that one
Just
because
need
it's
more information,
Okay.
and I appreciate the fact that Dale's here and he's educating us.
on
But
both things.
We've got some options.
I frankly, if I, based upon kind of the mushiness of, hey, we might need to get some more money without a real concrete plan here, we're gonna waste a lot of money on something that might not pass. But maybe I'm wrong.
So then with that, would it be the governing board's position that we would go out then to do the long-range facility master plan, which then would provide you that level of
Well, I don't know.
designated need, potentially, because it could come back that you don't have the need.
Yeah.
I think it would, because I know of areas of
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know that we can find,
yeah,
that we have need. There's no question about it. I just, I'm a little nervous about the ask on the community. It was a very, very clear, and correct me if I'm wrong, Marcy, there's a very, very clear mandate when the last time we issued a bond, which is that we needed to rebuild White Hill and we needed to fix up these elementary schools. And,
But it does sound like having that long-range view on our facilities so we're not caught flat-footed. We certainly would not want to have an oops in 2027
yeah,
where we overlooked something and we're behind the 8 ball and geez,
Right.
if we had only
Yeah.
done this 2 years ago,
Yeah, right.
we could have blah, blah, blah. So I
And
do
that-
think the idea of being
And I think
responsible
with
in that
and
long
that's
range.
part of what I think I'm hearing Chris say, is that
Yeah,
he needs
because what we
some
do
little bit of flexibility
Yeah.
in our budget at this point.
Yeah, and we do know that we're gonna have, as we see what's going on at the state level with expanding TK to 4-year-olds and expansion of universal preschool,
Yeah.
there will be certain monies that come aside along with those expansions. But oftentimes what happens is they don't pay for
I don't
the
know.
full
Oh,
amount that it's
definitely
going to
not.
I
cost.
understand, and we're
for
dealing
the
with
facility
declining
Yes,
enrollment.
that's what
Maybe
I'm-
you're hearing that in other districts, because it's a statewide trend, Dale, with declining enrollment.
Yeah, let me just add just a couple points for you to, as you're mulling this over. One is the point you made about the parcel tax, which is a good point. The parcel tax are 2/3. And there's a big difference between 55%, which is what this measure takes, and 2/3. I think it was also one of the special elections, I recall. But I
Yep.
didn't think it was.
Yeah.
The only, if you're thinking about, well, maybe we should delay, I would say 2 things. One is, the presidential election is probably the biggest election possible. I mean, you're right. If you're gonna do this in a district like this, I have virtually no concerns that you would not be successful. Just given the demographics, given the gubernatorial election, given the tax rate extension. But that has even increased more in a presidential election. The probability is the highest in a presidential election. But you look at this page, at the last page, and you have to think about that piece. You can see with the arrows where it says early 2023, first series of bonds. You're talking about early 2025 for the first series of bonds, which is a long way off. Now, if your needs are not that critical, okay,
Correct. This is, I think, where we are. We don't know.
that's fine. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. But you got to understand, you can't just say, okay, we're ready now. Well, that ready now is 2 years away. So it's unfortunate that you have this kind of idea now, or you're going to be waiting 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's what it is. This is actually the
And it's all accurate information. I get it. I think we all get it. I really hear Wesley because I feel the exact same way that, you know, and the one thing is that even though it will pass, and I have no doubt it will pass, the fatigue will be there and people will remember. And at the end of the day, I think if we do need something down the line, those things do get remembered.
So the risk is not of it passing or not.
Right, the risk is what is it when we need it? Yes,
Only
and
asking when you
yes.
actually need it, so that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, and I think it's not just us. And when you brought up the TAMT Act, that was a real eye opener for a lot of people. They're like, "Whoa, didn't pass?" And people had to fight. They're like, "Wait, but we need schools. They're going to cancel baseball or cancel football."
It wasn't even, it was like they were gonna get let go of teachers.
Teachers.
Yeah.
teacher like
And
how many
it
like
scared a lot of us.
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, you did.
So,
Okay.
there's a lot of
We gotta
food
keep
for
going.
thought here.
Okay.
If we're going to
So
get
there-
through this meeting.
So a thing
Wait,
to
no.
keep in mind is that when we would need to, if we need it in like a couple of years, it will be around the time when we start thinking about renewing our parcel tax as well. So that's something you need
That's
to keep in
another
mind.
timing thing.
Right on.
So that would be helpful to bring it back for further discussion with at least some preliminary kind of facilities information or what a facilities plan would be. What is our overlap the timing with parcel tax or the next presidential election as a consideration for that, so we can kind of look at a option 1 and 2 with the timeline, and then maybe also with the refinance is something that could be happening sooner.
Sure.
Yeah, that's
As an option to do that sooner. Maybe we do that sooner, we do the facilities plan, then we look at the presidential election or something like that. So I think it sounds like we would like to bring this back so that we're doing our due diligence long-range planning, but with maybe a few more pieces of puzzle in front of us.
That'd be great.
Would be great.
You've had a full day. It sounds
Yeah.
like you were down in Southern California.
Yeah.
No, I was in my office at home.
Oh,
A Zoom
okay.
call.
Zoom call. And thank you.
Yeah,
very
very
much
well
for
done. It's a
bringing
very
this
good report. I mean, it's
Well,
very,
just,
very
a
clean
lot
to
to think
understand,
about.
Yeah.
And
We had
especially
not
since
talked
we've
together.
got, 3
We had not
board
talked
members
about that.
who haven't been here, so it helps us pull this together.
We have not talked
Thank
about
you very
that.
much.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Dale.
Thank you so much.
Just that.
Nice holy wheel.
All right, we are then on to item F2, which is recommended adoption of a resolution in recognition of Staff Appreciation Week coming up here in May. Do we have any staff report on this, or?
Just related to how important we feel it is that we do honor and recognize all of our staff, and we like to in Ross Valley School District recognize all staff during 1 week, as opposed to some staff may be classified in 1 week, certificated in another, management in another, just to be able to have everything acknowledged all at once, because we do value all of our staff, and to have 1 week ensures that nobody is left out or forgotten.
Thank you.
And so
I
we
like
just
it.
want
I like the concept.
keep that tradition in Ross Valley schools, and the way that we landed on the week is looking at all of the recognition dates between the various employee groups, and coming up with one that matched around all of the activities that are going on in the schools, and making sure that we're making our Staff Appreciation Week front and center, and not in conflict with any of the activities going on. So that's what we looked at doing.
So I'll go ahead and read the proposed resolution, so we are all clear on what that is before any action. So it says, whereas California Education Code Section 37222 encourages suitable commemorative exercises in commemoration of days of special significance, and whereas the Board of Trustees has the utmost respect and admiration for the district's professional, certificated, classified, confidential, and administrative staff who dedicate their talents to the education of our children, our world's most precious resources. And whereas Ross Valley School District's professional staff can have a profound and lasting impact on the lives of our students, and whereas the Board of Trustees recognizes the truly vital role of all staff in realizing its vision for public education, and whereas the Board of Trustees recognizes that the quality of all students' educational experience depends significantly upon the adults who interact with them each day, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Ross Valley School District hereby acknowledges and proclaims the week of May 9th through May 13th as Ross Valley School District Staff Appreciation Week. That is the proposed resolution. And if there is
Can I make a motion to adopt the resolution? Or is there
after
more
we
to
see
do?
if there's any public comment, but no,
Public
I'm just gonna
comment?
say again for our listening audience that we have one member of the public here, so if we don't go back and forth too much in the public comment, that's what we're looking, that's where we are. So we don't have any public comment on this, so.
Can I make a motion? I want to make a motion to approve the resolution as presented to us this evening.
Wonderful.
I will second it.
So we have a motion and a second. And we will vote. Marie?
Aye.
Aye.
Rachel, aye. Okay.
Sorry.
And Wesley, aye. And Shelley, aye. So we have unanimous approval of resolution 072122. Thank you all.
Yes.
We have
Excellent.
to sign that this evening. We now have item 3, which is recommended approval of AB 1200 disclosures for the 2021-22 certificated management, classified management, and confidential classified staff. Staff report. Is this Chris?
Chris.
This
Chris.
is me, and so,
Looks familiar.
yes.
1200.
So, whenever we have a salary settlement, we have to do a disclosure to the County Office of Education under AB 1200. And this is as a result of districts that have gotten themselves into trouble financially as a result of those settlements. And so what we have to do is we have to put together our projections that we can afford the salary settlement for the current year and also the subsequent 2 years. And that's what you're seeing in this. So this is for the classified management, certificated management, and confidential staff. And so this is really just letting the governing board and the public know that we've done that, and we did provide the information to the County Office of Education within the required timelines. And we're required to give them 10 days notice of that before we go to the governing board, but we gave it to them well in advance of that.
Great.
So,
Any, no public comment? Any questions, clarifications, and/or motions?
Move approval of the recommendation.
Motion
A second.
and a second, so we'll go with the vote. Wesley?
Aye.
Marie,
Marie?
aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Rachel?
Aye.
All right. We have approved the AB 1200 disclosure, and we're on to the approval of salary and health and welfare adjustments for the 2021-22 school year.
And this one is for our unrepresented staff, our certificated management, classified management, and confidential staff. We as in our school district, we tend to do Me Too's with everybody we've already settled, and you've already approved the Ross Valley Teachers Association salary and health and welfare increases. And we do have a tentative agreement with CSEA, but they have to work through their process of getting it ratified with their membership that has gone out to them. So we're looking at potential that coming back at the May meeting. But what you have here tonight is the unrepresented employees. So there's not a union for our administrators or our confidential employees. So it would be the same that we have given to RVTA, which is 3% on the salary schedule, retroactive back to July 1, the $3,000 off schedule one-time amount, and that would be prorated based on FTE or days number of work. And then also the health and welfare increase to the Kaiser and Delta Dental employee-only rates. So it'd be the same that we had given to our represented group of our VTA.
Okay. No public comment? Any board or trustee questions?
No question, no comment.
Again, this is all looking familiar because when we went through it with our VTA, so it's kind of like you said,
I move that we approve.
a motion to approve from
I'll
Rachel
second.
and a second from Wesley and a vote. Wesley?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Go backwards there. Shelley? Aye. Ryan?
Aye.
Marie, aye.
All right. On to number 4, which is another salary, no, number 5, another salary, health and welfare adjustment.
Yeah, and I'm going to talk about this in related to 5 and 6,
Yeah,
so for the
okay.
chief
They're the
business
same.
official and for the superintendent,
Okay.
because the Brown Act requires that the governing board, prior to taking final action on revisions to employment agreements, they orally report to a summary of any recommendation for the salary schedules, or compensation paid in the form of fringe benefits for local agency executives. So in that case, it's for these 2 items, that's Chris Carson, because he is senior management, and as superintendent, I have a separate salary contract as well. And so what we need to do is have you take action separate on those so we can be rolled into the unrepresented management certificate and classified. And so the first one before you all tonight is for Chief Business Official Chris Carson. And this one is the same as what we had just taken action on with the other management. So it's 3% on the salary schedule, the $3,000 one-time off-schedule bonus, as well as the health and welfare increase to Kaiser and Delta Dental employee-only rate. And then nothing else related to his contract would change. This is the only aspect that would be voted upon this evening to make changes to the salary and health and welfare.
Any public
And
comment?
we have no public comments. Do we have any?
And I would like to propose a motion to
Okay,
approve.
Marie's got a motion.
I'll second it.
Second by Rachel. We'll go with the vote. Marie?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Ryan?
Aye.
Wesley?
Aye.
Got that one done. All right, thank you all. And
And the last
The
one
last
is
one.
related, and that would be for me as your district superintendent, the increase to the salary and health and welfare, 3% on my contract amount, and then the $3,000 off schedule, as well as the increase to health and welfare, employee only, Kaiser and Delta Dental. I'm turning red.
say it through the next time.
So there is no attachment to the board?
No, because there's not a salary schedule.
Okay, got it.
And
This is what I
so, yeah,
was-
the amount that is in my contract is stated in the,
In
in the board language, and did I print that off? I did.
Right there.
It shows it right there.
Oh, it's
Right
here.
there.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, got it.
The
Yeah,
last
so
paragraph.
it's,
Yes,
yeah,
I got it.
from 235 with the 3% would be 242.
Got it. With the 3%, right?
Yeah.
Okay. No public comment, I'm seeing. Any questions? Or,
Does this information get sent for the CBO and for the other administrations? Does it get sent to the County Office of Education as well? Or is it just rolled into the
Yes.
report, the 3 reports we send them every year?
Are you talking about the interim budget reports?
Yeah.
So the interim budget reports reflect those
Like-
salaries within our financials.
Okay.
But we do report to the County Office of Education for us as well. So one thing I didn't say is that I've included in that AB 1200 the 2. So we
Yeah, you're
want
part of the
those
staff.
in there, but we have to vote for us separately because of the regulations, because we're executives.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'll move for approval.
okay.
One second.
Motion and a second, and we'll do a vote. Rachel?
Aye.
Wesley?
Aye.
Ryan?
Marie, aye.
And Shelley, aye.
Thank you very much.
You are most welcome, and thank you for being very
Great work.
clear on what our obligations are under the regulations, so I appreciate it. It's nice to know that you guys got it down in terms of keeping us in line with all of those regulations, so thank you. All right, so we still will have one more on the salary schedule that's pending.
Yes, and that's pending. If the tentative agreement is ratified with CSCA, then we will come back in our first meeting in May, because by then they will have had their vote. If they do not ratify, then we'll be back at the table,
Okey
and
doke.
we'll be coming back at a different time.
All right. Do we have, let's see, what, there are so many of those. We finished that. So now we're on to item number G, which is the consent actions. Are there any questions on anything on the consent? Any considerations for consent? I'm not seeing any. No public comment. Floor is open for
I'll move consent.
we have
Second.
motion and a second. Wesley and Ryan will do a vote. Wesley?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Marie?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. Rachel? Okay, so consent passes. And on to board business with committee updates and reports from trustees. Are there any,
Yeah, I have one.
okay.
So since last time, there was a little JLAC meeting, but there was just nothing so special happening there. The most special thing that happened is me going to Sacramento with Mr. Chris Carson. We went on a field trip together. Like, you drive very well. Well, it just was lovely. And I'm just so nice that I just made a copy for each of you of, I think, the 2 slides that were the best of that day, because it was just really very clear on a couple of things. So I just decided to give you just,
nice.
I think, just an extract of like a full day that was good in town.
Did you
The
guys
whole
take the
day
bus?
on one
Full
page.
day, and I was
Full
seated between John Carroll and Mr. Chris Carson, a full day of entertainment in Sacramento.
This is for the SF squared.
Correct.
Thank you.
Did you take the bus?
And now I took the Chris Carson,
Okay.
personal chauffeur.
Express.
Grand thing. So that was really, what was great about that, you can have one as well. What was great about it is that we were amongst our, other districts. We were facing either a lot of conversation were around the lack of funding for ticket. Right, and when we are here and we feel isolated, then you go to Sacramento and you are not that isolated. The big was not super big. It's not like there was so many, millions of people there, but it was still a good group and some good thinking and some access to some presentation that were right on. And I think we can leverage if people were coming back and saying, hey, can we see more? Can you explain us more? It was definitely some good content that I think as a board over the next few months or, budget adoption or others, I'm sure we can really leverage some of what we learned there because they were well explained, it was right on target, it was definitely a day very well spent. and we definitely the pain on the ticket. So that was they were talking about, having all the district being together and acting together. So I really felt a sense of togetherness that day. That certain time at JLAC, I'm not always kind of feeling that because we are kind of all disconnected, and also we're not in person with JLAC. And there in Sacramento we're together, so that made a massive difference to actually be in a room with people. And being able to talk a little bit about what's going on in our districts. And so I definitely recommend that we keep being part of that group, and not always going to be exactly what we need, but I thought kind of in general that was time well spent. And thank you for the opportunity to have one of us on the trustee side attending, because I think it's part of getting all of us a better education about how to talk about our district and understand the finances and other aspects of the district. So I felt that was a great opportunity. So thank you, and I think. We don't really have a lot of questions from the public right now around our funding model, but I'm feeling more equipped right now. If there was a forum and people were asking questions, I think I can support Chris a little bit better that way. So that was very useful. So thank you.
Nice work.
Great.
Yeah, and if you have any question and you were feeling that we need more data, of course, the data person is Chris, but on the education, on the 101, finance. For other trustees, please feel free to outreach to me, because I think I've learned a lot that day as well.
That should be helpful too because we will be communicating more.
Correct. And it's like, do you remember that slide there? That's why I gave you one example of a slide that was like, I put a lot of hearts when I was there. When we went there, Chris is like, you need to use my little post-it because you don't want to put all your hearts everywhere, although I put my heart. And so the technique from Chris is to put post-its everywhere. I'm like, go back to it. I did because, it was bossing me around. Excellent day. Excellent day. I highly recommend.
Thank you. Any other?
I have a couple, but do you have any?
Yeah, go for it.
It's super quick. So yes, has their meeting on April 27th. They're kind of doing they're doing a longer thing rather than just a short meeting, kind of retreat. A retreat, that's the word I was looking for. I was like, it's something they've never done before. Yeah. So they're going to do a retreat to kind of first time in person and kind of just get everyone in the same room and celebrate the fact that they're together and how things are going. They had Battle of the Bands, which was a big success. They sold out, yay, it was awesome. Yes Theater is doing their last production for the spring for White Hill. It's by Birdie, and this show's April 22nd to the 24th. And Yes is launching their spring participation challenge, so that is going out. There's a electric bike you guys can win if the families can win if they're participating in the challenge. At this point, they want people just to participate at any level that they can. They're trying to get it up higher. I think it's 46% district-wide right now, so they're trying to get that up higher. And then Safe Routes to Schools is meeting on Friday, so I'll have them to next meeting.
You want to report on JIPA?
Do you want to?
Well,
Well,
it's going to get more expensive. How much more expensive remains to be seen. It might top $1,000 per pupil. I continue to that's I think for round trip, isn't it? I continue to be concerned that each family has a certain amount of money that they're going to budget towards school, whether that's for the foundation or for school field trips like we heard about tonight, kids going to Washington D.C. Or they're busing, and I don't know what the answers are. I just know that it's just going to become more and more expensive for our parents and our guardians to put their kids on the bus, and I think the bus is an absolutely integral part of our students' days. My kid takes the bus. I see the bus pass the house every day, and I continue to grow more and more concerned that this continuing escalation in costs is going to drive away parents. We're talking about e-bikes. That's a giveaway for for the Yes Foundation. Brian Colbert made a really good point, I think, when talking to the JIPA committee. If you're looking at how much the bus pass is and how much it costs to buy an e-bike, at a certain point, you're just gonna get your kid an e-bike.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the only thing
And they
is
are
the rain,
dangerous.
right? They're dangerous as hell.
They are dangerous, and I think a lot of these kids are going a little bit too quick. I see it again on Butterfield all the time. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be doing it, but I mean, these are really sophisticated bicycles, and kids get cruising on them real fast. And I think, I didn't get a chance to talk to Matt about it tonight, but I think that release over at White Hill is often a
Starting gate.
yeah. And I just hope and pray someone doesn't get hurt. So anyway,
Marie, maybe I noticed in one of the JLAC legislative, all of the bills are out now, legislative bills, and I was reading through the education ones from something from JLAC, and there is something in transportation. I
With the
didn't
universal
read it
transport.
really thoroughly through what that might be, but
Bon, this is universal transportation
keep
for.
our eye on.
You know, Wes, in regard to your bus passes and the costs, you know, I you know, we live in Fairfax is a little closer than some schools, but the problem is with the bus, and why the bus I believe is so vital, is when it rains or it's stormy, kids are on e-bikes, and options to walk are minimal, and those buses are really important at that stage, and it's not always springtime in Ross Valley. There's a winter season, and it's a cold season, and I just don't know how we get over that, and I don't know if you have to start discussing subsidizing and all kinds of issues, or special passes, or
the whole point is it is subsidized, but it's not subsidized enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Safe Routes gets their subsidy from the Measure AA funds.
Yeah.
But the amount that is being earmarked to the bus program isn't enough.
Isn't enough. And is there still a fight for people to try to get those passes like there was? Because I hear it's like almost like a lot of people don't get it. So it's not really serving everyone, and it's expensive also not serving everyone.
It's the difficulty part of it is because not all the buses can come at once. And they're servicing Hidden Valley, the Ross Valley Charter, and White Hills. So it's the same group of buses that are going to serve the three schools. And so
Scheduling.
it's the scheduling and then ensuring too. And one of the things that happened this year with coming out of the pandemic is the amount of ridership on the bus are fewer. And so they don't know yet if the ridership
going to come back.
be increased for next year.
Right.
But that was one of the delays. And then the families that they were talking about at the last GPA meeting is knowing that, so to try to encourage the later bus, they do give a little bit of a discount currently, but they don't know, talking about the subsidies that they're
We're still working on it. I think there's going to be more conversations with the county,
Adjustments and
with MTA, to see whether there's going to be some adjustments there. But I mean, I've had to pick up my boy over at White Hill because of other competing things, and he hasn't been able to ride the bus on a given day. And I've seen kids going over to the public bus because it's cheaper. And they're taking the Marin County at the Manor bus stop. They're all lining up, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it just goes to show that there's a demonstrated need, and there's a price point at which people aren't going to ride the yellow bus because it's too expensive.
How often are there GPA meetings? Like, how often is this being discussed and worked out?
I think they're usually 3 or 4 a year. I mean, this is only my second year participating, so I'd say roughly 3 to 4.
And sometimes they come at kind of pivotal points where we're trying to figure out, what ridership looks like. And for COVID, obviously we weren't running buses, so they basically had to tell
We have another
Michaels
one April 27th, I think.
Yeah.
That's when the next one
to
is.
come back to talk a little bit more about what the price actually will be.
Okay.
And I think people are speaking quite clearly about being concerned about that price point. Because at a certain point, people are just going to find some alternative.
The towns of San Anselmo and Fairfax, the representatives from those two towns, Renee and Brian, were going back to the town councils to see if they would continue to kick in the amount that they have. And I don't know if you remember offhand how much they've put in.
It's about 30, and I think that they're looking for maybe going up to, it might be 35, but they're asking for its initial contribution from the municipalities.
So we can get an update again, it sounds like at the next board meeting, because you'll have had another
Yeah.
feedback
Yeah.
before then.
And I want to read the one paragraph I have about the home to school transportation mandate. So there is SB 878 that if it passed would, beginning in 23-24, so it's not next year, require school district and others, or joint power authority to provide transportation services to provide all student transportation to their neighborhood schools if they live further than 1/2 mile from the neighborhood school for grade transitional K6 to blah, blah, blah. So that's free transportation, right?
Are you saying that there's a Senate bill that's on someone's desk right now that
Yep.
would require us
Yep.
to pay for the busing?
Yes.
It's exactly what she's
It's
saying.
exactly what I'm
Does
saying.
it
In the same way as you have
We
free
need to get
meal
the bond
next
guy
year.
back in
Okay.
here.
Does it have a budget implication? There's
Yeah.
money that goes
So-
along with it, or
So
not?
you know when
That's gonna be a disaster.
this has not passed yet because there is not enough bus drivers. There is a lot of debate about that. We talked about it last week.
Look,
at
if we have to
Casbo,
run a busing program, think about the infrastructure.
which is why there is a lot of pushback.
That better not pass. I mean, it
coming out
can't.
of
I mean,
the
if
legislature.
that passes, the whole state is gonna be in disarray.
The legislator who's pushing that is in East County,
In
or
where
East Bay.
East Bay,
Berkeley,
East Bay.
come out with Berkeley.
he probably grew up on the East Coast,
And
you know, because that's the way it is.
I
in
didn't
other
talk
parts
about
of the
it
country.
because,
But in
yeah.
California, with special ed, we were required to provide busing, but it's not considered part of public education. And with Prop 13 and the way Sacramento underfunds us as it is, if that Senate bill passes, there's gonna be a mutiny.
Part of the problem that happened back, districts were always funded for transportation if you ran the program. But when they implemented the local control funding formula, what they did is they created a separate carve out. And so it's now listed as an amount that's part of your LCFF, but that
It's
rate
embedded.
will it's embedded.
Yeah.
It never gets the increase to COLA on it.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what you had at that particular time is the amount you're gonna get. So Ross Valley School District did not have a transportation department, so our number is and always will be zero at that
I mean,
number.
here's how crazy it is. The bus passes and the money that's going into the bus program is paying the county, I wanna say, what, $25,000 a year
I'm not sure.
to park buses?
Yeah, oh.
Yes, yeah.
Just to park them.
Just to park them. We don't have the ability even to store the buses. Forget about actually get them purchased and maintained and
None of
insured
available anyway. Yeah.
and drivers in them and the rest of that. So
The biggest challenge that they have is that there's nowhere to store them in our area.
Right.
So
They have to drive them in.
they're having to drive them in, and those things get like 4 to 6 miles per gallon
right now, the
So-
county
You got a spot
is
in White
storing them.
I'm,
in San Rafael.
In San Rafael.
I'm gonna, if, I don't know if we need to do this, but I will, for our agenda planning after the next meeting
Yeah.
that you have on the 27th, maybe if you could communicate with Marcy and figure out whether, do we need an agenda, like, is there anything that we need to do? Do we need an agenda item? And then maybe if we do, we can put
On
it
busing?
on busing, just
We
depending
don't
on what
run the
happens.
buses. Until we're forced to run the buses,
Yeah.
I don't know if
Okay.
we need to.
Let's
amend
keep an
that.
eye. I would keep an eye
We'll
on
keep
this
an eye.
SB
Yeah.
878.
You
Okay.
keep an eye on
I
the
will
AB
report
and
on
you
it.
keep an eye
Yeah,
on
when is it
the-
when is it gonna go to the Senate, do you know?
I will send you personal email.
Okay, thanks.
Wonderful.
I will
That will be an
put on
interesting one.
top of my list because I have only like 500 bills to watch, but this one I'm going to put Wesley name on it.
Put Wesley's name on
Wesley
it,
gets to
Bill.
watch it.
Any other board updates? Ryan?
Nothing as exciting as transportation after that. It's like
No. I don't have,
yeah, let me look into
are
it.
you talking about
I can
any
do that.
equity stuff in the staff? Or was there any update there that I
No,
don't have?
that one.
I don't have enough, there wasn't
No.
a meeting or anything.
Let's look at Casbo.
We
Um,
will at the next meeting.
Okay. All right. So moving on to the approval of the meeting minutes for February 8th. Are there any edits, amendments, changes?
Isn't that the one that we had to skip?
I had to skip, so I'll be abstaining on that one.
You skipped it, you were.
Was that the one I was here with?
No, I don't think you and I could make
I
it.
think,
I think there was one with the three ladies.
yeah, I think that
We
might have
did
been it.
so we
So
worked
I'll
so well
abstain.
that day. We went really fast.
Do we have a,
No, they
did
were
you
not.
pull it up? They weren't here.
Right.
So it's just the
Okay.
three of us that can vote on that.
Make a motion to approve.
You make a motion to approve and a second, and we'll vote. Marie?
Abstain.
Aye.
Abstain.
And Ryan abstains, Shelley, aye,
Aye.
and Rachel's aye, and Wesley, you abstain.
Abstain.
So 2 abstentions and it passes. Then we do have the meeting on March 8th. Any edits or amendments to that?
I did that with that one as well. No. I make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
And a second, and we'll do a vote. Marie?
Aye.
Wesley?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. And Ryan?
Aye.
Are you sure?
What should you thinking? She's
No,
checking
no,
the
it's just-
ending time.
Was Wesley not here last month? That's why I was pausing for a second. I was trying to remember who was here or
I
not.
thought I was there in March. Was I not?
I don't think you were.
I thought it was February that I missed.
I think you were, yeah, you weren't here according to the minutes.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, that's why I was thinking about it.
Then I should abstain.
Sorry.
No, thank you for pointing that out.
Okay, so Wesley abstains on that one.
Okay.
Do we need to redo the first?
Yes, we should.
Yeah, do it,
Let's, let's,
I will move we approve them.
thank you.
And I second. It was here.
Okay, so now we have
Sorry.
a motion and a second. Rachel?
Aye.
And Marie?
Aye.
Ryan?
Which one is this?
It's
You
the
would
board
have-
minutes for March 8th.
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye. All right, now we're on to superintendent cabinet report.
Alrighty, and Julia is not with us tonight because she's not feeling well, so she's taking the night to continue to get better every day. And so, but it's not COVID, all right?
That's good.
So, there are other things going around.
There are.
Alrighty, so we'll start then with business services. Chris Carson, anything else? Tonight was the Chris Carson show, but
I do have one thing, just it'll be fast. With the spring break that we just completed, it's an opportunity for us in the maintenance and custodial arena to be able to get in and start to really dig into the school sites a little bit without interruptions and being able to do a little bit deeper cleaning. And so we were out and about doing things like deep cleaning our multipurpose rooms and taking a look at roofs and that type of thing. So I just wanted to let you know all of the hard work that was going on during that time that our children and staff were out. So
Great, thank you.
all right. And Eric Sable, Director of Student Services, anything within your department?
Yeah, we are the beneficiaries of, we're in year 3 now, the Tobacco Use Prevention Education Health Disparities Grant, which is state funded from money gained from cigarette sales. So they're giving that back to schools to use for tobacco education prevention and or tobacco prevention education, I should say. And so they I think pretty much every district across the state was struggling to utilize all those dollars through the pandemic. You couldn't go to conferences, you couldn't have speakers, a lot of kids weren't even in physical school. So so they made the decision to have a year 4. And so working with the White Hill team, specifically their admin and counselor and social worker, and also Mr. Carson, we put together the year 4 proposal and submitted that before spring break. And so what that has been so beneficial for us because it helps pay for some salaries with our mental health professionals, with other programming, and also with part of the goal of the program is for districts to focus on priority populations, on historically underserved students. And so we also are able to utilize some of these dollars for our equity work, to engage with consultants to conduct professional development, etc. And all that relieves pressure off the general fund for other invaluable uses. So so we'll wait and see we're on a first name basis now with the grant committee. And so they give us feedback, hey, what about this, adjust that. So we're hopeful that the year 4 is approved for this 2B grant. We're starting to get ready for extended school year, which is a service provided to special education students that require more intensive services over the summer so that they don't regress in their skills. So that means staffing it, getting commitments from the kids to attend. We'll be able to staff some folks in district who are, stepping forward voluntarily to be a part of the team, and then we're also hiring from outside as needed. And that'll be for 4 weeks, starting right after school gets out. And, for our English language learners, the LPAC summative testing is essentially complete. So that's been amazing work from our EL teacher team, and yeah, lots of other great stuff going on. Those are some of the highlights.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you. All right, and looking forward to Brookside's open house this week. So we have Brookside this Thursday, and then Manor comes up toward the end of May. And so looking forward to those, but it's been thoroughly enjoyable, as Rachel talked about earlier this evening, going into all the classrooms at Hidden Valley, Wade Thomas, and White Hill to see the way that open houses have changed a bit since my kids were in school is it's really a time for the kids to show off for their families, or for their families to actually get in and do sample lessons and activities that the kids get to experience every single day. So whether it's one class had their families, students go on a scavenger hunt with their parents around the classroom with things that they wanted to have, make sure that the kids showed their parents as they were going through, to, as I mentioned, the demonstration lessons. It was really fun, and to see the racial equity work that we've been working on and focused on this year, getting our racial equity work into the classrooms, is really seeing that evidence in the classrooms. And so it's just been great so far. Looking forward to going to Brookside's and Manors coming up, and getting ready for next year. And so Julia and I attended Marin County Office of Education puts on a job fair, and I also participated. Julia wasn't able to because she was in Stanford for the day with elementary math teachers. I attended a Dominican University teacher credentialing panel, and I participated on the panel to give them kind of an idea of here's what you need to do to get out there in the workforce. And so there were a number of either superintendents or HR representatives for that panel. And I will say, between the job fair and the Dominican University credential candidates, it's the most diverse group that I have seen ever come through. And so it's fabulous. So we're gearing up for hiring season. We at least anticipate a couple of elementary openings. I'm not quite exactly sure of the grade level, but we're holding first round of interviews this Friday. It'll be a screening interview because there's so many folks who have applied. So it's great to see that on the hiring front, even though we're in a teacher shortage, that we do have a number of folks interested in Ross Valley. Doesn't mean they'll choose us in the end, but at least we have a number, and it looks like it's a really great pool. And also, we know, looking forward to with our 6th grade teacher who was released just a few weeks ago, is for a replacement. We do have some interviews coming up for that position, and then also for math for next year, because we know we need a new math teacher at White Hill. There's we have a lot of teachers this year. It's an additional beyond their 1.0 FTE, but based on the total amount of FTE that we know that we need a full-time teacher out at White Hill. So hiring season has begun, and as things look right now, we should have a very successful season. So with a more diverse pool of candidates as well. So that's wonderful to see. And then we have had superintendent's chats. So we I'm keeping that tradition that was started when Rick was superintendent in the district, and looking forward to going out to school sites. We've been to 2 so far. And we have 2 more school sites coming up next week, and then 1 the following week, and that'll round out for this year. Hopefully, beginning next year, we'll be able to start sooner and get to every school site twice in the year. But it's a chance and an opportunity for parents to come and ask cabinet members any questions that they have about what's going on in the district, where we're headed. So we've had topics of the funding situation has come up at 1. Our racial equity work has come up at 1. Questions around just supports that kids are needing coming out of I shouldn't say out of, because we're still in the pandemic, but as we're transitioning more into schools and getting our activities fully running, we're still really in the surveying phase of what are our kids needing. Mm-hmm. And so we're looking forward to getting that feedback and input. We've also had roundtable and Superintendent's Council. Okay. Roundtable focuses on fundraising, and it's a group where there's parent club, yes, site council, and we look at the fundraising that has occurred and determining if there are any overages from the parent clubs, then where do the overages go? Roundtable approved. So we had started this process, or actually Rick did back here in the 1920 school year, looking at what to do with the 2018-19 overage. There was $19,000. And with that, because COVID hit, right as they were getting ready to take that vote, last year we were getting a bunch of new people. All of our superintendents or roundtable were via Zoom. Mm-hmm. It was very difficult. We created a subcommittee of treasurers to create a common budget formatting worksheet that they would all use, so there would be a common reporting template of every school site, parent club, PTO, whatever the organization is. And we didn't finish that. So this year we voted, or they voted, on the 2018-19 overage and determined to give it to White Hill. So with yes not being able to fully fund what they have historically for White Hill, the clubs and the athletics, it was a kind of a no-brainer for Roundtable to make that consideration and approval. So our next meeting, which is May 6th, we will focus on looking at the reporting for 2021, last school year. Not very likely at all that the school sites, because of the pandemic and not being able to come back to in-person school fully, is they didn't have their fundraisers they were able to have. So there likely is no overage, but we're going through the process to take a look at it all and make, if there are any overages, just happen to be, then we'll make the determination of where they will go. And for Superintendent's Council, we're focusing really on getting input for our LCAP update. Mm-hmm. And so that was another area where we really focused on the impact of COVID-19 and how has it impacted returning to school for our students, and especially with our LCAP, we know we have to pay attention to our unduplicated, our foster youth, and our EL students and so on. And it was very enlightening to hear directly, because again, Superintendent's Council is basically the same group of folks as Roundtable, but we add certificated and classified employees to the mix, and of course our principals and cabinet members are present. And to get the feedback though, to hear from representation of the Owens, our Parent Guardian Equity Task Force, and our DLAC. So it's a broader representation of our parent community, and getting that feedback was really helpful as we go forward for planning for our LCAP updates. And then there's an annual administrator breakfast, and it's put on by the College of Marin, and this year it was held in person, which was great. First one I got to attend in person, and it was held at the College of Marin Indian Valley campus, and it's where middle schools and high schools and superintendents are invited to meet with College of Marin and talk about what might be the career pathways that we can have students on. And so there's dual enrollment options and pathways that not really many middle schools take advantage of in Marin County, but the high schools certainly do. So we learned a lot about what that might look like, and it gave us food for thought. Matt attended, Maria, Autumn Arbery, our school social worker, and we attended and got some just good ideas of how, as we're differentiating and helping kids to see that path for their future, there are a lot of opportunities they can take advantage of. So we're interested in learning more and to see what we might be able to do. Because there would be reduced tuition. There's a lot of ways to help our kids get some ideas of what does college look like and what is that advanced pathway to get interested in, whether it's nutrition or it's firework or it's technology, whatever they might be interested in to get that pre-work. And then last but not least related to planning is with the expansion of transitional kindergarten, there are certain elements and requirements that we have to meet in creating our UTK plan. And that involves meeting with stakeholders. And one of the stakeholder groups is our preschools. And so with that, there are first 5 of Marin, which is a preschool group, put on an event on April 1st, was the Friday before the break. And Chris and I went and participated in the part where there was direct questions and feedback and wonderings by preschools as an example, and to let public schools understand and know about what do 4-year-olds look like, because a lot of 4-year-olds right now are still in preschool. They're not in school unless they're within the band of September 2 to December 2. And now next year, as we know, it's expanding to February 2, the following year to April 2. And then by that 3rd year out, it's all 4-year-olds. And so it's a huge problem too for the preschools and losing that age of population of kids that they have there. So it was a nice partnership, nice way to communicate and talk, and our local preschools were there. Got to talk with Michelle from SAMS and Genevieve from Daycaring and Kathy from SAPS. And so at least those were the 3 that we were able to connect with and hear. There were rooms were set up based on geographic area in Marin County. And so our district was with some Kentfield as an example, we were all in the same room. And so that's kind of our planning for now. We're using the consortium that Marin County Office of Ed is putting together to help districts develop our universal TK plans. And so through the Marin County Office of Ed, we've distributed a survey out to the families to get that input from our families as to what it might be needed in implementing TK, even though we already offer TK, right? So it seems strange for us really to have to participate in this because we're not developing TK. We're just expanding. So, but those are kind of the updates, the highlights of what's gone on and going ahead for the next couple of weeks. Thank you.
Any questions? No?
No.
All right.
Something in the eye burning.
All right, well then, we are coming here quickly into the end of our meeting. Any questions on future board topics and board direction? I only had one because I know we've got a budget session. There's like our next, just wondering what the cadence was for the next budgeting information. When is that coming? Because we got a couple meetings.
When it comes to the adopted budget, we are required to have a public hearing with the document presented at a regularly scheduled board meeting, and then at the next regularly scheduled board meeting, we would take that for adoption. And so normally you would do that. Both of the meetings would be in June. However, we only have one in June, but we do have one on the 31st of May. I believe it is. So you will be receiving the budget hearing and the document at the May 31st board meeting. You will also be getting the LCAP because the LCAP has to follow that same process. So you have a hearing, the first meeting, and the second meeting you have the adoption of.
Gotcha. And when is the May revise from the governor?
It's usually around the 12th.
Yeah, the session is on May 20. The official session is on May 20.
Okay.
Friday morning, May 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll probably get the information from school services maybe
May
a week
20.
earlier.
Yeah.
Okay. To integrate into that process.
Yeah.
Quickly.
It may
or may not.
You may not get it in the adopted
No.
budget
Okay. Got
just
it.
because of the timing.
Sure.
You might be able to get a revision to the LCFF, but if there are some major changes that would require changes in our programs, that's probably not going to happen.
Going to be too late.
That would be too late.
Okay.
But something major like the cost of living adjustment, we could probably get it.
Any other questions on future topics? I think we covered it in so. Hearing none, then we can close close the board meeting at 10 o'clock.
And we do not need,
Adjourn.
we do not need a continuation of closed session. We finished,
Oh yeah, we don't need to continue
Yeah.
closed session.
and so we're ready
we are
to adjourn.
adjourned.